the 100-year storm of the river just, 4 blocks over, but once every 100 years it takes out the whole town. Is is the farmer you're putting this land on really not going to plow in the next 3 years, and you're not going to be able to get there? Is there a fence? Is there a creek? All of the things that are going to hinder how you can get to where your bees are. And I'll tell you, the harder it is, the less likely you are to go there, and the less likely you are to go there, the more likely it is your bees will fail. So if you have to go someplace else, just make dead certain that you can get there anytime you want, any day you want, all year long. Dead winter, middle of summer, spring and fall. Make sure that they have water, forage, the same kinds of protection, hive stands if you need them. And out in the country, you're more likely to need hive stands than you are in town. If you can get them far enough from people that they're not going to bother the people, but close enough that the people can see that there's a car driving up doing something, or there's a bunch of kids walking by, so you've got that kind of a protection. You may even want to deal with a landowner on a professional basis, obviously, on a commercial basis, and get a contract and say, okay, I'm going to pay you some rent, and it's worth it to me to pay you money to have my bees here because it's got water, it's got access, it's got forage. If you've got a good spot to put bees, you're making lots of honey, it's worth it to you to know that they're going to be safe, and it's a little bit of investment on your part. Again, we too often put bees where we can than where we should. If we find a place that we should, it has some value to you. The location should be good for you, for your bees, and for the landowner. Obviously, all of this today going on here, it's wonderful to see. You can call it a new paradigm, whatever you want. Cities are changing how they think. The reason they're changing how they think is certainly all of the media attention that bees have been getting because of colony collapse disorder, because of threats of pollinators, loss of pollinators, and our job as beekeepers is to take advantage of this every chance we can, all the time, as many times as we can. It's happening not only because cities are looking at this, but people are wanting to know where their food is coming from. And this is the rise in farm markets and CSAs and those sorts of things, backyard gardens, honeybees, beekeepers, rabbits, chickens in backyards. All of these things have increased in the last several years. It all has to do with people wanting to know not only where their food comes from, but wanting to know the quality of the food that they're getting, and that they want some control over their diet. It's the same with bees, but if I go back 30 years in Cleveland, 40 years in Cleveland, you could have bees 40 years ago in Cleveland, and nobody cared. I mean, you could, 20 colonies on a city lot, no property lines, no nothing. And beekeepers abused these laws long enough that finally the city said, okay, enough of this. You guys have screwed up. We're taking it all away, and they just shut down beekeeping totally, completely. Well, they just released it here 2 years ago. They said, okay, maybe we are overreacted, but here's the deal. If you want bees, there's a whole new set of rules and regulations that you have to attend to if you're going to be a beekeeper. One of them is that in Ohio, it's the law that we have to register our bees so that the State Department of Agriculture knows where we are. It's a disease prevention and inspection thing. I don't know if you have. Yeah, you have that in Pennsylvania. I don't know if registration is mandatory, but it's certainly recommended. But that's the change has been from cities looking at how bees and beekeepers are being treated is now that, okay, you can do it, but we're going to be paying more attention. You're probably going to have to register not only with the state but with the city. There's probably going to be somebody that's going to come and check. There'll probably be a permit every year that you have to pay. These are the things that have changed, and I don't know if I agree with them or not. It doesn't make any difference whether I do or not. If those are the rules where you are, then those are the rules you're going to have to deal about. And they are reacting more to complaints. I've seen that in Denver and Minneapolis. And even San Francisco, where beekeeping has been legal, people are looking at it a little more closely. And if there's a complaint, somebody's going to come and check. And if they have to come and check with you, strike one. And you'll start to have to think about paying more attention. One of the things I want to talk about is robbing, and I want to explain how robbing behavior happens and what you can do about it, because it's probably the worst thing that can happen in an urban setting with bees. In fact, it is the worst thing that can happen, I think. In Ohio, for the last 3 months, we've had temperatures mostly over 90. And plants essentially don't grow when the temperature gets over about 80, 85, 86. They just shut down. They don't die, and if you get enough rain, there's not even a drought, but they don't grow anymore. When they're not growing, they're not producing nectar and pollen. So you can have a lush landscape, which we do in Ohio right now, and no nectar and pollen. Nothing going on for the bees to do. So they're out searching. I mean, there's plants, there's flowers. They're looking, and they're not bringing anything home. Meanwhile, they're still continuing to eat. Right? So the stores that they had of pollen and nectar are being depleted in the hive even faster, because as long as there's no food out there, they're sending out even more scouts. So the level of activity is going up, the amount of food is going down, and right in the back of their little bee brains is going the word crisis. We got a problem coming up here, folks. No food coming in, food going out, and what are we going to do? Well, you know what? There's a beehive right over here. It's a weak little hive. She can't defend herself. Let's just go take their honey. It happens. Or you as a beekeeper go out on a nice sunny like this, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you're supposed to be out there, and you say, look, it's Sunday, I've got 1 day to check my bees. I got to do it today because I'm not going to get back here for a week. You take the hive off. You take the cover off that hive. All the bees in that hive over that big, strong, robust hive over there, that one that's screaming crisis right now because they're running out of food, go, hey, you know just what happened over there? These guys are vulnerable. Let's go. Let's go take their... Bees are opportunists. They're going to take food where they can find it. Those are the two things that happen with robbing. The bees in that big, strong hive, and maybe that strong hive, and maybe that strong hive, if you have several, find out you've got a weak, open hive over here. Everybody's here, right? Boom. Get the honey. Of course, the guys in the little weak hive go, no, you don't. And they start. It's a battle. It's a battle to the death. What happens is the bees from the big strong hive try and take it. The bees from the weak hive, they fight at the entrance, at the top, wherever there's an opening. They're stinging each other. It's the only defense that they have. When a bee stings, she releases a waft of alarm pheromone. If you're a beekeeper, you know the smell. It smells like lemons. And it just begins to waft over your bee yard because there's this battle royal going on. There's this battle royal going on at this beehive. And what happens is this waft of alarm pheromone drifts over to your neighbor's yard because of the wind. And what happens then is bees are following this alarm pheromone, and when they smell alarm pheromone, they're stinging everything in sight because there's alarm pheromone. There must be a problem. I'm going to sting this guy because he's in the way, and then I'm going to sting this guy because the alarm pheromone is wafting, and then I'm going to sting her, and then him, and then him, and pretty soon I'm 2 blocks away. And you've got an emergency on your hands as a beekeeper because you have started this problem of robbing. So, as I said, it's probably the worst thing that you can do, and it's very easy to. It's very, very, very easy to not have happen. Is you just don't open that hive. You leave them alone, they're fine. You get involved in the situation, and you can have a problem. I think it's a good problem to have, in that you've got bees that are big enough and strong enough that can happen, but. There's some other good problems that you can have as an urban beekeeper, and one of them is the fact that there aren't a lot of urban beekeepers, so your bees have access to a lot of forage. There's a lot of forage in this part of Philadelphia. People have gardens, they water them, they have water yards, so you've got access to water. Because there are very few beekeepers, I'm not running into a lot of beekeepers that have problems with their bees with the disease, so my bees are healthy, and they're well fed, and they've got lots of water. And urban bees generally do a lot better than bees in the country. There's just so much more stuff out there for them to feed.